So maths can get very confusing, so it's good to write yourself a little idiot sheet like I've done here. So I've got my desired maths. So this is what my compositors have asked me for. So we've got materials, the whiskey, the glass and the cap, and they're going to be in the red, green and blue respectively. And the objects, we want the gun, the mugs and the desk, and they're going to be in the red, green and blue respectively. So we looked at material IDs and we saw how we assign them numbers, and then we can assign those numbers, and from those numbers we can then we can create our mat. And it works exactly the same with object IDs. You simply go to an object. So let's get my idiot sheet again. So we are going to assign the pistol to 1, the mugs to 2 and the desk to 3. So where do you assign these numbers? We select the pistol, we go to attributes, V-Ray, object ID, and we go down to the bottom of the pistol shape, and we have these extra, actually to the pistol, extra V-Ray attributes. So V-Ray object ID. So be careful because you're going to assign them both within the shape and within the element, and you don't want to do both because that will create two mats for the same thing. So the object ID I'm going to set to 1. It was set to 5. I'm going to set it to 1. It will, by default, it won't exist and it will just default to 0. Now I'm going to select my mugs. I'm going to select the actual group, and I'm going to assign that. It's already been assigned, but I'm going to assign a object ID. So it's attributes, V-Ray, object ID, and down there we are, extra V-Ray attributes, and I'm going to set that to 2. There we are. And finally we want the desk, so we're going to assign that. It's already had an object ID assigned to 6, which is from my previous setup when I set up the demo project, but I'm just going to set it now to be 3. So if I go to my render settings and I create an object ID node, and if I just render it, I'm not even going to bother renaming it. What it will do, obviously we're going to look at the object ID layer. So there are a few things we can see. It's not being filtered, so it's got this harsh not anti-alias edge, and it's also, we haven't chosen the colors. So this is yellow, this is green, this is red. Now this means they'll have to be keyed. If you're selecting this with Photoshop, you know, using the wand or something, it's fine. Obviously in a compositing app you can do this as a kind of a key, but what we really want is mats that are so simple you don't even have to key them. You can just use the shuffle operations like we've been doing in the demos. So the best way to do that, this is why it's very popular to use the multimatte node. So the multimatte element can actually be used either for objects or for materials. So if I just find one, multimatte, there we are, not the multimatte ID. So just going to delete that bit, but actually we'll be renaming it anyway. So we're going to do the same thing. So we have decided, and if we check our idiot sheet again, that it's going to be guns are going to be red, mugs are going to be green, and the desk is going to be blue. So 1, 2, 3, that corresponds to the numbers we assigned, so that these numbers only exist because we've done them. By default it will be using object IDs. If you actually tick this box, it will use the material IDs. I'll just show you that in a minute. So if I render that quickly, now I really like the multimats. There we go. So they're translucent. So they're assigned a particular color, and the great thing is here that we can actually, you know, just shuffle the channels. So if I look at the red channel, I've just got the bottle and its reflections and so forth, and green channel, I've just got that. So I don't even have to do a key. I can just use a shuffle or some kind of channel operation if I want to get more than one of them. So consider for anti-aliasing, if you want to decide to anti-alias these edges, that's quite handy. So if we look at that, you will see that we get these nicer edges, which, you know, as we're anti-aliasing the real edges, we want to anti-alias the edge of the mats, otherwise they won't line up. And we have some other things. So if I click this, we'll use the material IDs, which remember we assigned previously. They've got different numbers, but we should start to see the whiskey and the glass. So we're going to get, this is actually going to be the glass, the bottle cap. So our numbers probably weren't set up correctly to give us a useful setup, but you can see that we've got something very similar to what we did with the material ID. So I'm going to stop that because we want to use this for object IDs. So where are we? There we are. And we're going to go back to the settings, and as I said, what we're going to do is name them in a useful way. So it's gun, mugs, desk, mat. Of course, rather than assigning the name in the node, you can assign it within the layout in this file name suffix. So assigning it within the file name suffix is just an alternative route. The nice thing about doing it here is you've got a nice list, but of course if you're using some kind of script, you can just automate it, and you might want to do it this way. So there you go. So let's render that out, and that's it. That's the multimat node. Thank you very much, and in the next clip we're going to look at cryptomats.